Hello, class. My name is Ekadora Johnson. Today I'll be talking to you about the 10 principles of effective online teaching, best practices in distance education, aka given the name the 10 Commandments. In this article, I focused on my top three principles that I believe were effective for my support in blended learning or my online classroom. The first principle that I believe was important was the one of showing up and teaching. I believe as a teacher, it's important that you are there. It's important that you are doing your job as a teacher, which means to facilitate, which means to provide support to students, whether that be face-to-face interactions or whether it be with the blended learning or online learning. It's safe to say that you can't assume that students know exactly what's going on. You can't just leave your students high and dry without being there to facilitate, being there to answer questions, being there to support them when needed, maybe even just kind of sitting down with them or reaching out to them via email and letting them know what they need to do, or if they have any confusions to kind of look at certain things, even provide extra support. In the article, they talk about the role of the instructor is to oversee the course from beginning to end. Not showing up for the class and the environment in the online environment leads to confused and frustrated learners. We definitely don't want that to happen. As educators, our goal is for students to be learning. We want students to enjoy the process of learning. So in that way, we want to make sure that we are there. We want to make sure that we support our students and prepare them for future. My second principle that I'd be focusing on is principle three, establishing patterns of course activities. It's very important that you establish a pattern in your classroom. You don't want to always be doing different things. In the face-to-face classroom, I always have my students come in, start with the do now. I also have my agenda written up on the board as well as my objective for the day. In the online classroom, this does differ. It has evolved into maybe having a course announcements board, and maybe me being sending out information to students via email, and maybe me sending out announcements, reminders to students about the activities that we have going on. And it's important that the students know what to expect. It's important that students know where to see things. The patterns of the LMS is consistent. The page isn't changing frequently. So one thing that I do is I have students always practicing, always going onto the online classroom that we use, which is Google Classrooms. And students have learned how to maneuver through this website. They know where to find the classwork. They know where to go to do the discussion boards. Students know the expectations of how they reply to forums and different discussions, as well as how to access different websites that are given to them through their classwork assignment. Um, a key thing here that I noticed from the quote from the author Reagan is a defined schedule of class activities can serve to prevent the class from interfering with other responsibilities and balance the expectations of the learner who may desire 24/7 access to their virtual teacher. All right, so with this one, it's also important that you let students know when you are available. This doesn't really impact me a whole lot because for my learning group that I have a seventh grade class. So much of my blended learning will probably take place in the classroom. And then outside of school, I don't expect students to be up too late, but I will let students know that I won't be available all night. So some of the work that they may take home that may be online, they can expect that I'll give them a schedule that lets them know when I will be available, and so on and so forth. Principle four talks about planning for the unplanned. So of course, as in life, you can never plan for everything, whether it be I'm ill or I can't make it to school the following day. It's always important to kind of have a plan in place for students to still follow, to continue the work. So for me, one of the things that I would always say is maybe just setting up um, an email with students, having a point of contact with students to always be able to read and kind of see what's going on if there's any changes that take place, as well as having a place in the LMS tool, my online classroom, where I can kind of make announcements, course adjustments to assignments that are due, letting students know if something needs to be pushed back. This is very important, of course. I mean, things do happen. Um, Changes do need to take place. Students may have frustration or confusion about an assignment. You may have to push it back, and even though you had planned for a certain day for work to be completed or turned in, you may have to push back. You may have to let students know that they have an additional day, or maybe you just are sick. Anything could happen. Another thing that I noticed that they talked about is also maybe having another teacher knowing what's going on. In my school, I have a classroom aide in some of my classrooms that I've involved in my Google Classroom as well as a facilitator. So maybe sometimes even letting that teacher know what's going on, keeping them in the loop, letting them know that they can make changes, letting them communicate with students, letting them just kind of know what's going on. So planning with that teacher as well will help with having a second point of contact and not just me at all the times. Integrating my instructions, my classroom instructions with my blended learning environment, it's pretty simple for me. It's just maybe doing a lot of modeling in my classroom, uh, having students already understand the mixture between the two of maybe starting my class with 30 minutes of me doing activities with our class where we're not using technology, and then the other 30 minutes of class where students are on technology, where students are working on something independently, where students are working in the Google Classrooms program, um, doing classwork, doing a project, and still just kind of being engaged in the online blended environment and still having the support of the teacher there. Um, I definitely want to get students more accustomed to this, having students become more comfortable as they will start getting homeworks, they will start having assignments where they're not always going to be in the classroom, but they will know what to do through the modeling techniques that I've incorporated in my class already. There are some challenges that I see that come about. I know students will become confused with certain things. I know students will have questions about certain things and not, getting that immediate feedback as they want with, talking to the teacher and expressing your concerns. But I'll let students know about, the different ways that they can contact me. I'll definitely talk about it in class as to, having the emails, checking your emails consistently and frequently is something that's effective in this digital society. So making sure that we have a clear line of communication, having tools online, having multiple ways to depict what I want students to do, having videos, having a reading, um, having the modeling in class also helps with students knowing what to do, where to find things. Um, Creating a chat room maybe of something of sorts where we can always kind of keep in contact. Um, Granted that it's between a good time period that I can respond back to students. So these are kind of the things that I want to do with my blended learning environment and my expectations in my environment as well. Thank you.